Before we begin, I want you to picture an ice cube sitting on a hot sidewalk. It is a perfect crystal structure, organized, symmetrical, but every second it sits there, it is being bombarded by heat. What happens?
It melts. It turns into a puddle.
Physics calls that a state change, but I call it a surrender. The ice is surrendering its order to the chaos of the environment. It is increasing its entropy. Now, imagine that ice cube is the size of a continent.
You are talking about Greenland.
I am talking about the last great fortress of order in the northern hemisphere. We look at Greenland and we see a political territory, or a potential mine, or a climate victim. But through the lens of astrophysics, Greenland is an anomaly. It is a massive, highly ordered structure defying the thermal chaos of the modern world.
And it is losing the fight.
It is. But the story isn't just about melting. It is about what happens when human beings, who are obsessed with control, try to impose their own discipline on a system that is spiraling into disorder. We think we can conquer the Arctic with money and technology, but the second law of thermodynamics is very clear. You cannot cheat the house. The house always wins.
That sounds like a grim way to look at geopolitics. The house always wins means we are destined to lose.
It means that maintaining order requires a massive, continuous payment of energy. We call that payment discipline. And right now, we are about to see what happens when the bill comes due and we cannot pay it. Let's look at the first slide. Open the file to page 1.
The gravitational betrayal. The visual here is dark. It looks like a gravity map. The text says the ice sheet acts as a planetary mass anchor.
Think about gravity as the ultimate form of discipline. It holds things together. It creates structure. The Greenland ice sheet is so massive, so heavy, that it physically pulls the ocean towards it. It imposes order on the sea level itself.
So the water piles up against the coast because of the ice's gravity.
Exactly. It hoards the water. But look at the slide. As mass dissolves, gravity weakens. As the ice melts, as it succumbs to entropy, that gravitational grip relaxes.
And the water flows away. The slide says local sea levels will actually fall by 20 to 50 meters. That is counterintuitive. We always hear about sea levels rising.
They will rise everywhere else. That is the chaos spreading. But locally, around Greenland, the order is collapsing. The gravitational betrayal is simply the loss of structure. When the discipline of the mass is gone, the water drifts away, seeking a new equilibrium.
So this far field effect mentioned here, the disproportionate rise elsewhere, is basically the export of chaos.
Precisely. Greenland is shedding its entropy into the rest of the world. And yet, while this physical collapse is happening, we are deluding ourselves with stories of profit. We think we can exploit this collapse.
You mean the mining narratives?
I mean the blue pill. Let's move to page 2.
The rare earth mirage. The slide shows a stock ticker and a politician. It mentions Greenland, the new Saudi Arabia.
This is the lie we tell ourselves to feel in control. We see the ice melting, which is a terrifying increase in planetary disorder, and we try to reframe it as a business opportunity. The ice is melting, so we can get the minerals.
It is a seductive story. Critical minerals. Green energy transition. It sounds like a plan.
It is a low-entropy narrative. It is simple, clean, and organized. But look at the data. Operating mines, 0. Separated oxides produced, 0.
0, after all the headlines.
Absolutely 0. Why? Because the market is trying to impose a linear, orderly supply chain on a chaotic, hostile environment. The slide calls it a stock promotion fantasy disconnected from the Arctic environment.
So investors are buying the story, not the reality.
They are buying the potential asterisk of order, but they are ignoring the thermodynamic cost of actually extracting that order from the ground. In physics, we talk about activation energy, the energy required to start a reaction. In Greenland, the activation energy is infinite.
Because of the logistics.
Because of the entropy of the terrain. The blue pill is thinking you can just walk in and pick up the rocks. The red pill is realizing that the rocks are fighting back.
Let's talk about those rocks. Go to page 3.
This is the hardware.
The target is eudialyte. Complex sodium, calcium, zirconium silicate. That sounds messy.
It is a chemical nightmare. Look at the structure of that word, complex. In thermodynamics, complexity costs energy. To separate the rare earths from this rock, you have to break incredibly strong chemical bonds. You have to reverse the entropy of the rock.
The slide lists processing barriers. High-temp acid leaching, radioactive thorium.
Think about the discipline required to manage that. You need acid. You need heat. You need to contain radiation. That requires a massive, highly ordered industrial system.
And the infrastructure capex is greater than $5 billion.
That $5 billion is not just money. Money is just a token for energy. That $5 billion represents the sheer amount of work required to impose order on the Arctic. The geological rejection mentioned in the title is the landscape saying, your energy budget is too low.
So nature is essentially pricing us out of the market.
Nature is demanding a level of discipline that our economy cannot sustain. We want cheap minerals. We want easy order. But the Arctic only offers hard order. And because we can't pay the price, the mines stay at zero.
If it is so impossible, if the physics are so against us, why are we still talking about it? Why are superpowers posturing over Greenland?
Because sometimes burning energy is the whole point. Turn to page 4.
The software, the handicap principle. I see a peacock tail. Like a peacock's tail, the waste is the message.
In evolutionary biology, which is just physics applied to life, organisms signal their fitness by doing something difficult. A peacock grows a massive, heavy, colorful tail. It is a burden. It takes energy to grow and drags him down.
So why do it?
To show the females and the rival males that he has so much surplus energy, so much genetic discipline, that he can afford to waste it.
Costly signaling theory.
Exactly. Signals are reliable only if they are costly. If it was cheap, anyone could do it. Now, apply this to Greenland. Why are the US and China fighting over frozen rocks that cost $5 billion to mine?
To show they can.
To signal resource holding potential. It is a geopolitical flex. We are saying, look at the entropy we can withstand. Look at the waste we can endure.
So the inefficiency is the feature, not the bug.
Precisely. We are burning billions on a frozen mirage to prove that our national engine is strong enough to fight the second law of thermodynamics in the most hostile place on Earth. It is a display of thermodynamic dominance.
But history suggests that dominance is usually temporary. The ice doesn't care about our signals.
The ice eventually crushes everything. We have tried to fight this battle before, and we lost. Let's look at the wreckage on page 5.
The source code, Project Iceworm. The U.S. Army trying to hide nuclear missiles inside the ice sheet in the 1960s.
This is the perfect case study in hubris. The U.S. Army looked at the ice and saw a solid. They saw a bunker. They thought, this is a static structure. We can drill tunnels and impose our order, our geometry into the ice.
Planned tunnel length, 4,000 kilometers. That is massive.
It was a monumental attempt at imposing discipline. They built a city under the ice, Camp Century, but they forgot the physics. Ice is not a solid. It is a viscoelastic fluid. It flows.
The slide says cause, viscoelastic deformation.
The ice moved. It slowly, relentlessly deformed. It crushed the tunnels. It twisted the steel. The entropy of the flowing ice overwhelmed the structural discipline of the Army engineers.
Status: failed 1967. It only lasted a few years.
It failed because they mistook a high-entropy dynamic system for a low-entropy static one. They thought they could freeze time, but the ice is alive. It ejected them.
And it didn't just eject them. It is spitting out their secrets.
That brings us to the present danger, the ghost in the machine. Go to page 6.
The glitch, zombie ice. The visual is a rusted barrel and melting ice.
Zombie ice is a terrifying concept. It refers to ice that is still attached to the main sheet, but is no longer being fed by snowfall.
So it is starving.
It is thermodynamically dead. It is committed to the ocean. It has already crossed the threshold. Even if we stopped global warming today, this ice will melt. The disorder is locked in.
The slide mentions committed loss, 110 trillion tons. That is a staggering amount of mass.
And as it melts, it reveals the sins of the past. Buried Cold War secrets, PCB, diesel, radiation, are resurfacing. This is the entropy we tried to hide. We buried our waste, our disorder in the ice, thinking it would stay there forever.
But now the container is breaking.
The discipline of the containment is failing. The glitch is that the system is no longer in equilibrium. We are seeing a runaway feedback loop. And this leads to the ultimate conclusion, the final state of any system that loses its discipline.
The collapse.
The phase transition. Page 7.
The horizon. Thermal-Viscous collapse.
In physics, a phase transition is when a substance changes from one state to another, solid to liquid, order to chaos. The slide mentions hydrofracture and basal lubrication.
The solid barrier transitions to a sliding liquid mass.
The water is getting under the ice. It is greasing the skids. The friction, which is a form of discipline holding the ice back, is disappearing. The deepest 15% of the ice sheet is warming to the melting point.
Timescale, 4 centuries. It feels slow to us, but geologically, that is a blink of an eye.
It is an irreversible shift. We are witnessing the breakdown of a planetary structure. The ice sheet is an indifferent god, and it is deciding to move.
So, coming back to your theory, if the ice is losing its discipline, and our attempts to impose discipline, like the mines and the tunnels, are failing, what is the lesson?
The lesson is that we are not the masters of entropy. We are just temporary pockets of order. We look at Greenland and see a resource. Physics looks at Greenland and sees a heat sink that is failing.
So we should stop trying to conquer it.
We should respect the magnitude of the forces we are playing with. Discipline isn't about forcing the world to bend to your will. That is what Project Iceworm tried. True discipline is adapting your internal structure to match the reality of the chaos outside.
We need to align with the entropy, not fight it.
We need to understand that the gravitational betrayal is inevitable. The water will fall. The coastlines will move. The only question is whether we have the discipline to move with them, or if we will stay stubbornly in place, like a statue in the sand, waiting to be drowned.
Survival is a discipline.
The only one that matters.